这样预备式。然后还有一种就是说是它是直接往后抵，直接往后这个做这个直接抵。
是一样的动作。
这个是一样。
Hey, I'm Antonios Graceffo's Martial Arts Odyssey. Today we are at the Shaolin Temple and we're in China. No, we're in Bangkok, Thailand at the Shaolin Temple in Bangkok, Thailand. 哦，你好，师傅好，师傅，你叫什么名字？
我叫刘高杰，我的少林寺名字叫释延杰。
Okay, so this is Shi and he is a Shifu. He is from the Shaolin Temple that's in Henan, China. 多久了？
我在那边10多年吧。
He studied more than 10 years before coming down here. 你现在几岁了？
我现在23岁。
23?
对。
哇，你很年轻。He's only 23 years old and he's now the head of this temple and it's pretty beautiful. 你这里有几个学生？
学生130多人。
Okay, so he's got more than 130 students here. It's pretty amazing in Thailand. 大部分是泰国泰籍吗？
泰籍的大概占一半。对，然后另外的是外国的一个外国。
So he said that basically about half the students are Chinese Thai people, but the other half come from outside, and most of them are also Chinese from Singapore, Taiwan, China, and then there's also Westerners. And I find this everywhere I go in the world. There's Westerners, Americans, Europeans studying all different kinds of Asian martial arts because they love it. And he said, right now, you can come here and study. They don't have a place for you to sleep, but they're building one. But they'll help you find a place if you want to sleep here and train. 是不是？很好。所以你
我们教的主要是少林寺的传统套路。少林寺的传统套路。
Okay,
然后现在还说不是表演，我们也有在进行，但是说传统的套路它是比较没有表演的看起来好看。
You're teaching the Shaolin forms here, but he says it's not exactly the same as the demonstration forms that you'll see in the show where the monks go around the world. He said that's actually a little bit more beautiful.
在这里当教练可以说是比较舒服，没有这么累。为什么呢？就是说，因为在少林寺我就会变成懒惰。
Okay, he said that being a teacher here compared to being a teacher in China, you could say that here it's a little bit more comfortable, and he said that you'll actually become lazy if you're doing it for too long. So 因为这里你的学生。第一
学生是
他
们一般都是一个礼拜一般是2次，然后他早上练和。
So he's they're teaching classes twice a day, and then he says the rest of the day he's got time to relax, and he's also studying Thai language, which he speaks better than in
在泰拳馆。对，那个泰拳馆的老板是我的朋友。
Okay. So we met at the boxing gym the first time, and the owner of my boxing gym is a friend of his. For a long time now. 所以你觉得你那个泰拳比起来跟那个少林寺？
它泰拳和少林寺的拳法它是2种不同的。你说像少林拳，它是主要讲究的是灵活，然后呢，它是动作很多。
对。
很多很灵活，特别的灵活协调。
对。
泰拳就不同，泰拳就是说，他的身体很硬，然后他就直接打。他主要是吸肘比较多，而且他身体泰国人。
So he said the biggest difference is that the Chinese Kung Fu has a lot of movements, and you got to practice over and over, for years and years. And every part of your body winds up getting conditioned. He said that with the Muay Thai fighters, they only have a few things they got to work on. They got to condition their elbows, their knees, your shins, and the muscles for fighting. But that's it. So it's concentrating on less things. 因为他们练的比较少的东西。
对，不错。对。因为你看我们少林，我们有少林，总共起来是光少林的套路就有300多套。
In the Shaolin Temple, they have 300 different forms they have to learn.
对。那如果说加上中国其他，那个就是很多了。这个我也不知道有多少。
But and in the whole China, he has no idea how many different forms there are.
因为我们是每天有练套路拳术，然后有练兵器。那泰拳就不同，泰拳它有泰拳的刀，还有这个。那泰拳他每天他就练这个包括。
Also with the Muay Thai, it's also straight up. It's straight up fighting. With Shaolin Kung Fu, they have all different 不一样的
对不同
高，不一样的动作，
对，
因为泰拳是每一次一样的动作，对不对？
对。
你今天教我一点功夫。
可以，没问题。
Okay. Talk to my God. When I was at Shaolin, I was supposed to be learning forms, but I wasn't very good at it at all, as you can see. And my body type is completely wrong for forms.
3出拳，
But I don't know that it's appropriate to judge every martial art by its ability to fight. A trained Muay Thai fighter is probably going to beat most Shaolin people, but that doesn't mean that Shaolin has no value. And I think that we really need to get away from evaluating martial arts based on their fighting ability.
先到这里。
Every time I explore these other martial arts that are not fighting arts, I keep saying how important it is for your health to do as many different kinds of movements as possible, and that taking up a sport like Shaolin a few times a week to supplement your workouts would make a lot of sense. It's still a good workout. You're still burning calories. You're building muscle. But the big important thing is that you're moving your body in ways you don't normally move it, and you're stretching. And so adding Shaolin to a Muay Thai person's training diet, would be the same as adding any kind of exercise to a couch potatoes diet. It would probably have about the same amount of benefit, which means suddenly you'd be moving, you'd be bending, you'd be twisting, and you would just be a generally healthier person. And you'd probably have a lot less injuries in your Muay Thai.
OK， 这个动作就是抓到手这里，然后往下压，可以往后拉，因为这个是压，这样。然后如果说是
Liu Gao Jie is a pretty incredible person. I mean, he's only in his early 20s, and he's running this big Shaolin Temple. They've got over 100 students. He's got 3 younger monks working for him, and I really enjoyed training with him and meeting him. Because I met him at a Muay Thai gym, the obvious comparison that we kept making is what's different between Shaolin and Muay Thai, and how can Shaolin survive in a country where Muay Thai is the national sport? He said that although the Thai boxers actually have a better build, they look more like bodybuilders. He said that the Shaolin guys are actually more thoroughly trained. They have to do so many different kinds of movements, and lifting and twisting and jumping and leaping and moving their bodies in so many directions, whereas as a boxer, you're only doing a very limited number of motions, number of movements. You only have a limited number of techniques. He also said that people box because they need money. So in a country where a lot of people are poor, you have poor people trying to box their way out of poverty. Rich people would never box, or even middle class or upper middle class Thais would never box. Now this Shaolin Temple is in a pretty ritzy neighborhood. So what you wind up with here is that wealthy parents will allow their kids to do Shaolin, whereas they won't allow them to box. The other thing is that the bulk of his students are Chinese Thais. A lot of overseas Chinese and Taiwanese and Singaporeans and things apparently train with him, but the bulk of his local students are Chinese Thai, so it's actually pretty cool. He speaks Thai fluently, but most of the time they were speaking Chinese because all the students learn Chinese at home.
完了，谁给你来套路啊？就是说把这个动作分解开。你看，你比如说刚刚你打下，嘣一下，我就不这样打。
What he's saying is every one of these Shaolin forms has a purpose, practical application. Every movement has an application. And at the temple, they do this like 10 hours a day, just that one form for a month or 2 months or 5 months, and you'll build those muscles. And what he's saying is if we think about how we're supposed to be using the movement and then practice it, that's much better than if we just practice maybe.
所以说每一招每一式。
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.